Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Endeavour, watching the massive alien ships appear on her screens. Her heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady. After 50 years of wondering if humans were alone in the universe, they finally had their answer. "Communications, open all frequencies," she ordered. "Let's try to talk to them." The Endeavour was not a warship. It carried scientists, diplomats, and explorers. Earth had sent their best and brightest on this mission to the outer edges of human space, hoping to find new worlds to study. They never expected to find other intelligent life. Lieutenant Rodriguez worked frantically at his station. "Captain, I'm picking up structured signals from the lead ship. It's definitely artificial, but I can't decode it yet." Sarah nodded and activated the ship's diplomatic protocols. Earth's leaders had spent decades planning for this moment. They had created careful rules for first contact with alien species. Rule number 1 was simple: be peaceful, but be ready to defend yourself. "Raise shields to minimum power," she commanded. "Just enough to protect us from their engine radiation. We don't want them to think we're hostile." On the main screen, the alien fleet was impressive and terrifying. 12 massive ships, each one bigger than anything humans had ever built. Their dark hulls bristled with what looked like weapons. But Sarah held on to hope. Maybe they were just being cautious like humans would be. The largest alien ship moved closer. Sarah could see strange lights pulsing along its surface. It was beautiful in a deadly way. "Captain," called out Dr. Martinez from the science station. "I'm detecting massive energy readings from their ships. Their technology is far beyond ours." Sarah felt a chill but kept her composure. "That doesn't mean they're hostile. Maybe they're just showing off like peacocks spreading their feathers." She activated the ship's universal translator program and began broadcasting on all frequencies. The message was simple and had been practiced hundreds of times back on Earth. "Unknown vessels, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth ship, Endeavour. We come in peace from the planet Earth. We mean no harm and wish to establish friendly contact with your people." The bridge fell silent as they waited for a response. Seconds felt like hours. Sarah's crew looked to her for guidance, their faces showing a mixture of excitement and fear. Finally, a response came. The alien voice was deep and harsh, like grinding metal. The translator struggled to make sense of it, producing broken phrases that chilled everyone who heard them. "Primitive, surrender vessel. Resistance futile. Comply immediately." Sarah's stomach dropped. This was not the peaceful first contact Earth had hoped for. But she had her orders and her duty to her crew. "Send another message," she told Rodriguez. "Tell them we are explorers, not soldiers. We want to learn about them and share knowledge." As they waited for a response, sensors showed the alien ships taking attack formations around the Endeavour. Sarah realized with growing horror that they might not be interested in talking. "Captain," whispered Commander Park, her first officer, "maybe we should jump to warp and get out of here." Sarah shook her head. "Not yet. Earth needs to know about this. If we run now, they might follow us home. We have to try diplomacy first." The alien response came faster this time and angrier. The translator managed to piece together more words. "Submit. Scan vessel. Primitive defiance. Unacceptable." Dr. Martinez suddenly looked up from his station, his face pale. "Captain, they're charging their weapons. Energy levels are off the charts." Sarah's mind raced. The Endeavour had shields and basic defensive weapons, but nothing that could stand against this alien fleet. She had to make a choice that would affect not just her crew, but possibly all of humanity. "Bring shields to full power," she ordered. "Charge the defensive systems, but do not target their ships. Maybe they'll see we're only defending ourselves." The bridge lights dimmed as power flowed to the shields. On the screen, the alien ships glowed brighter as they prepared to attack. Sarah opened a channel to the entire ship. "All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for possible combat. Remember, we represent all of humanity out here. Whatever happens, we face it with honor." She turned back to communications. "Send one more message. Tell them we do not want to fight, but we will defend ourselves if attacked." The response was immediate and terrifying. Beams of pure energy lanced out from the alien ships, striking the Endeavor's shields. The ship shook violently as the protective barriers held for a few precious seconds. "Shields down to 60%, reported the tactical officer. "They're not trying to disable us, Captain. They're trying to destroy us." Sarah gripped her command chair as another volley hit them. "Return fire, target their weapon systems only. Maybe we can convince them to stop." The Endeavor's small weapons fired back, but they barely scratched the alien hulls. It was like throwing stones at armored giants. "Captain, we can't win this fight," Commander Park said urgently. "We need to send a warning to Earth." Sarah nodded grimly. "Do it. Send everything we've recorded. Let Earth know we tried to make peace." As the communications officer worked to transmit their data, the alien ships prepared for a final attack. Sarah could see the massive energy build up on her screens. This would be the end. "Message sent, Captain," Rodriguez reported. "The quantum beacon is active. Earth will know what happened here." Sarah looked around at her crew. They were scared but still at their stations, still doing their duty. She felt proud of them and sad that their mission would end this way. "It's been an honor serving with you all," she said softly. The alien weapons fired one last time. The energy beams cut through the Endeavor's remaining shields like paper. The ship's hull began to glow and melt under the incredible heat. In the final seconds, Sarah thought about Earth, about her family, about all the humans who would never know what had happened out here in the darkness between stars. She hoped someone would remember them and learn from their sacrifice. The UES Endeavor exploded in a brief flash of light, taking with it humanity's first and last peaceful attempt to join the galactic community. Light years away on Earth, receivers picked up the quantum-entangled emergency signal. Within minutes, the full recording of humanity's first contact was being analyzed by the highest levels of government and military. The message was clear. Humans were not welcome in the galaxy. The aliens had made a choice when they destroyed the Endeavor. They had chosen to see humanity as a threat to be eliminated rather than a species to be welcomed. It was a choice they would come to regret. In the cold vacuum of space, debris from the Endeavor slowly drifted apart. Among the wreckage, a small piece of metal bore the ship's name and Earth's coordinates. The aliens collected it as a trophy, not knowing they had just given themselves directions to a world that would soon change everything they thought they knew about war. War Prime Zexthal stretched his forearms as he completed his report. The destruction of the primitive vessel had been routine, barely worth mentioning. He looked out at the stars from his command ship and felt satisfied with another job well done. The Krathari warrior was 7 feet tall with thick gray skin that could stop most projectiles. His people had conquered 17 star systems for the galactic hegemony. To him, the small human ship had been nothing more than target practice. "Commander," his aide approached carefully. "The Hegemony Council wants your full report on the border incident." Zexthal turned to face the smaller alien. "Tell them it was nothing important. A primitive species tried to resist our authority. I dealt with it quickly and completely." He walked to his command station and pulled up the tactical recordings. The human ship had been pathetically weak. Their shields were basic, their weapons were laughable, and their technology was thousands of years behind hegemony standards. "What do we know about their homeworld?" he asked his intelligence officer. The officer, an insect-like Vorthak, clicked his mandibles nervously. "According to our long-range scans, they come from a single planet called Earth. One world, War Prime. They have some space stations and a few colonies, but nothing significant." Zexthal laughed, a sound like grinding rocks. "One world? They barely qualify as a spacefaring species. What threat could they possibly pose?" Across the galaxy, the Hegemony Council received his report with typical indifference. The council chamber was massive, filled with representatives from hundreds of conquered species. At the center sat the High Arbiters, the 5 most powerful beings in known space. High Arbiter Thane, a crystalline being that sparkled with inner light, barely glanced at the report. "War Prime Zexthal has eliminated a minor threat on the outer rim. The species calls themselves humans. They posed no significant resistance." The other arbiters nodded agreement. They dealt with dozens of such reports every day. "New species, were discovered, evaluated, and either absorbed into the hegemony or destroyed. It was the natural order of things. Were they technologically advanced? Asked High Arbiter Kess, a floating gas being that communicated through color changes. Barely, Thane replied. Single-planet civilization, primitive shields and weapons. Warprime Zextol's report classifies them as negligible threat level. They're not even worth a follow-up mission. High Arbiter Vex, a massive reptilian creature, rumbled his approval. Good. We have more important matters to discuss. The rebellion in the Andovar system requires our attention. Assign Zexthul there. His experience with quick elimination of primitives will be useful. The decision was made in less than 5 minutes. Humanity's entire species was discussed, evaluated, and dismissed as unworthy of further attention. The council moved on to other business, never knowing they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. Warprime Zexthul received his new orders with enthusiasm. The Andovar rebellion involved an actual challenge, a species with advanced weapons and strong defenses. It would be a real war, not the simple elimination of backward primitives. As his fleet prepared to leave for Andovar, he thought briefly about the human ship they had destroyed. The crew had fought bravely for primitives, he had to admit. They could have surrendered immediately, but chose to resist instead. It was almost admirable, in a futile sort of way. Warprime, his tactical officer reported. We're detecting some unusual energy readings from the direction of the human system. Zexthul glanced at the display. What kind of readings? Unknown, sir. Very high energy output, but the patterns don't match any known technology. It might just be solar activity or equipment malfunctions. Zexthul waved dismissively. Probably their primitive sensors giving false readings as they try to understand what happened to their ship. Ignore it. We have real enemies to fight. Chop, Krathery fleet jumped to warp, leaving the human sector behind. In their databases, Earth was marked as threat neutralized and forgotten, but across the galaxy, other monitoring stations were picking up similar readings from the human system. Strange energy signatures that didn't match any known technology. Massive construction projects that seemed impossible for such a primitive species. The readings were dismissed by every hegemony analyst who saw them. After all, the humans were primitives with one planet and basic technology. Whatever they were doing couldn't possibly be important. Lieutenant Vash of the Hegemony Monitoring Service looked at his screens with confusion. For 3 months now, the sensors had been picking up increasingly strange data from the human system. Energy outputs that rivaled small stars. Construction on a scale that suggested millions of workers. Sir, he called to his supervisor. The readings from the human sector are getting stronger. I think we should investigate. Commander Yoke, a purple-skinned humanoid, barely looked up from his other work. The humans? Didn't Warprime Zexthul eliminate that threat? He destroyed one ship, sir, but the energy readings suggest massive activity throughout their entire system. Something big is happening there. Yoke sighed with annoyance. Lieutenant, the humans are a single-planet species with primitive technology. Whatever you're seeing is probably just solar flares or equipment errors. Stop wasting time on dead threats and focus on real problems. Vash wanted to argue, but he knew better than to challenge a superior officer. He marked the readings as equipment malfunction and tried to forget about them. But deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that something very wrong was happening in human space. Meanwhile, Zexthul was winning glorious victories against the Andovar rebels. Their advanced weapons and strong defenses provided the kind of challenge he enjoyed. Each battle was hard-fought and satisfying. During a quiet moment between battles, his aide brought him updates from across the galaxy. Most were routine reports, but one caught his attention. Warprime, there are continuing unusual readings from the human sector. Some analysts think we should investigate. Zexthul's mood darkened. The humans are dead. One ship, primitive weapons. No threat. Why does everyone keep bringing them up? The energy signatures are very strong, sir. Whatever they're doing, it requires enormous power. For a moment, Zexthul felt a strange unease. But then he remembered the pathetic resistance the human ship had offered. One world of primitives couldn't possibly threaten the might of the hegemony. It's probably just their planet dying, he decided. Maybe their sun is going nova, or they're having some kind of primitive industrial accident. Either way, it's not our problem. He closed the report and returned to planning his next battle against the Andovar rebels. Behind him, his aide quietly filed the human reports in the ignore category. Across the galaxy, the hegemony continued its business as usual. Wars were fought, worlds were conquered, and species were absorbed or destroyed. The strange readings from human space were noticed by dozens of monitoring stations, but dismissed by every analyst who saw them. After all, everyone knew the humans were just primitives from one small world. What could they possibly be doing that would matter to the mighty galactic hegemony? In their arrogance, the hegemony had made a critical error. They had confused technological advancement with intelligence, firepower with wisdom. They would soon learn that humanity's greatest weapon was not any technology, but their ability to learn, adapt, and prepare for the worst possible outcome. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when you underestimated a species that had evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill them. Admiral Marcus Torres stood in the war room deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, watching the recording of the Endeavor's destruction for the 100th time. Each viewing made his anger burn hotter. The aliens had murdered Captain Chen and her crew without even trying to communicate properly. "Play it again," he ordered quietly. The holographic display showed the peaceful UES Endeavor surrounded by alien warships. Torres could hear Sarah Chen's voice trying desperately to establish communication, offering friendship and knowledge. The alien's response was always the same: death. Around the table sat the most powerful people on Earth. The president of the United Earth Council looked pale and shaken. The heads of every major military force were present, along with the directors of humanity's secret research projects. "How long do we have?" asked General Patricia Wu, head of Earth's Space Defense Force. Dr. Elizabeth Hayes, Earth's leading xenobiologist, consulted her tablet. "Based on the aliens' technology level, they could reach Earth in a few months if they decide we're a threat. But they might not come at all. They seem to dismiss us as primitives." President Martinez leaned forward. "What are our options?" Torres had been preparing for this moment his entire career. "We have 3 choices. First, we surrender and hope they treat us better than they treated the Endeavor. Second, we run and try to hide somewhere in the galaxy. Third, we fight." "Fight?" President Martinez looked incredulous. "You saw those ships. Our entire fleet couldn't scratch one of them." Torres smiled grimly. "They saw our civilian exploration, ships and research vessels. They have no idea what Earth is really capable of." He activated a new holographic display. Deep space images showed the outer solar system, but these weren't the barren rocks most people thought they were. Hidden among the asteroids and outer planets were massive structures that looked like nothing the aliens had seen. "Project Damocles has been running for 40 years, Torres explained. "We always knew that first contact might not be peaceful, so we prepared." The display showed shipyards the size of cities, hidden in the asteroid belt and around Jupiter's moons. Weapons testing facilities on Mars that made nuclear weapons look like firecrackers. Construction projects that had consumed the resources of entire planets. "My God," whispered President Martinez. "How did you hide all this?" "We didn't hide it from you, sir. We hid it from telescopes and sensors looking from outside the solar system. Every human leader since 2157 has known about Protocol Omega." Torres changed the display to show personnel files. Millions of people listed as working in deep space mining and outer planet research were actually building humanity's war machine. General Wu studied the numbers with professional interest. "How many ships?" "Right now, about 3,000. Combat vessels. But they're not like anything in our current fleet. Each one is designed to fight enemies with superior technology." Dr. Hayes looked confused. "How is that possible? If their technology is so advanced..." Torres activated another display showing human weapons research. "Their technology is advanced, but it follows predictable patterns. Energy shields, plasma. Weapons, faster than light drives. All things we've been studying and preparing to counter. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had been preparing for interstellar war before they even knew aliens existed. There's more, Torres continued. Our analysis of the attack on Endeavor shows weaknesses in their tactics. They're used to fighting primitives who surrender quickly, or other advanced species who fight conventionally. They've never faced an enemy that appears primitive but fights with advanced strategy. President Martinez rubbed his temples. You're talking about war with an entire galactic civilization. They have hundreds of worlds, thousands of ships. Yes, sir. But they also have a fatal flaw. Arrogance. They dismissed us after destroying one ship. They have no idea what's really out here. Torres brought up tactical analyses of the alien attack. Look at their formation. Perfect for intimidation, terrible for actual combat. Their weapons are powerful but inefficient. Their shields are strong but predictable. They fight like bullies who've never faced real resistance. General Wu nodded, slowly. What's the plan? Torres activated the main display, showing the entire solar system. Phase 1, complete construction of our fleet. We're still building ships in every hidden facility. Phase 2, gather intelligence. We need to know more about their military, capabilities, and psychology. Phase 3, first strike. First strike? Dr. Hayes looked alarmed. That makes us the aggressors. Torres's voice turned cold. They became the aggressors when they murdered our peaceful envoys. Now they're a threat to every human being alive. We can't let them dictate the terms of our survival. President Martinez stood up and walked to the window overlooking the hidden command center. Hundreds of people worked at stations below, coordinating humanity's war preparations. How long until we're ready? He asked. 6 months for full deployment, Torres replied. But sir, there's something else you need to know. Our deep space monitors have detected alien activity near our borders. They're not coming here, but they're close enough to be a threat. The president turned back to the table. Are you certain we can win? Torres was quiet for a long moment. No, sir, I'm not certain we can win. But I'm absolutely certain we can make them regret starting this fight. And sometimes, that's enough. Over the next 6 months, the Sol system became a hive of secret activity. Ships that dwarfed anything in Earth's public fleet rolled out of hidden shipyards. Weapons that could crack planets were installed on space stations disguised as research facilities. The crown jewel of human engineering was the solar defense grid. To outside observers, it looked like a normal array of communication satellites around the sun. In reality, it was a weapon system capable of channeling the sun's entire energy output into focused beams that could destroy fleets across multiple star systems. Captain Rodriguez, formerly the communications officer on the Endeavor, survived the attack by being on leave on Earth. Now he stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, humanity's newest and most advanced warship. It's not just about revenge, Admiral Torres had told him during the assignment briefing. It's about making sure this never happens to anyone else. The Retribution was twice the size of the alien ships that had destroyed the Endeavor, but it was designed to look like a simple cargo vessel. Its weapons were hidden, its armor disguised as civilian plating. To alien sensors, it would appear to be an easy target right up until it unleashed hell. Dr. Sarah Kim, the mission's xenobiologist, worked alongside former weapons researchers to study the alien psychology displayed in their attack on the Endeavor. Her conclusions were disturbing but useful. They don't see other species as equals, she reported. To them, we're either subjects to be ruled or obstacles to be removed. There's no middle ground in their thinking. This intelligence shaped humanity's battle plans. There would be no negotiation, no surrender, no mercy. The aliens had made their position clear when they destroyed the Endeavor. Now humanity would respond in kind. As the 6-month deadline approached, President Martinez stood once again in the war room. The displays now showed a solar system transformed into a fortress. Every asteroid had been weaponized. Every planet turned into a military base. Are we really going to do this? He asked quietly. Torres looked at the memorial wall, where the names of the Endeavor's crew were inscribed in gold letters. They made the choice for us, sir. Now we finish what they started. In space, the first ships of humanity's hidden fleet powered up their engines and began moving toward the edge of the solar system. The galaxy was about to learn that humans were not the primitive species they appeared to be. They were something far more dangerous. A species that had spent their entire history preparing for the worst possible outcome. And the galaxy's worst nightmare was about to come true. Commander Kethavol of the Hegemony Border Fleet was having a normal day when his entire universe changed. He was reviewing supply reports in his office aboard the Fortress station at Kepler 442 when his aide burst in without permission. "Commander, we have a problem," the young Vorthak officer chittered nervously. "The outer sensor net has gone completely silent." Kethavol set down his datapad with annoyance. The sensor network around Kepler 442 was the most advanced early warning system in this sector. It couldn't just go silent. "Equipment malfunction?" he asked. "No, sir. All the sensors went offline simultaneously. Every single one, across the entire system." Something cold crawled up Kethavol's spine. In 30 years of military service, he had never heard of anything like this. "Sound general alert. Get me a connection to Hegemony Command." As alarms began blaring throughout the massive fortress, Kethavol rushed to the command center. His staff was already at work trying to understand what was happening. "Sir, we're getting reports from patrol ships throughout the system," his tactical officer reported. "They're seeing something impossible." "Show me." The main display activated, showing a feed from a patrol ship near the system's edge. What Kethavol saw made no sense. The entire defensive network, hundreds of weapon platforms, sensor arrays, and communication relays, was simply disappearing. But they weren't being destroyed. They were being taken apart, piece by piece, by something that moved too fast for the cameras to track. Metal components separated from each other and began floating in perfect geometric patterns. "What kind of weapon does this?" whispered his aide. Before Kethavol could answer, his communications officer called out urgently, "Sir, we're losing contact with Defense Platform 7. No explosion, no distress signal, it's just gone." On the screen, they watched Platform 7 dissolve like sugar in water. Its massive armored hull separated into individual components that began arranging themselves in a perfect sphere. "All ships fall back to the fortress," Kethavol ordered. "Prepare for attack." But no attack came. Instead, something far more terrifying happened. Across the entire Kepler 442 system, every artificial structure began to disassemble itself. Weapons, platforms, communication arrays, mining stations, even the fortress's outer defense grid, all of it separated into component pieces that floated in space like a vast three-dimensional puzzle. "Sir," the tactical officer's voice was barely a whisper. "Whatever's doing this, it's not destroying anything, it's rearranging it." Kethavol watched in horror as his entire command dissolved around him. The fortress itself began to come apart, but in a way that left every crew member perfectly safe. Sections of hull peeled away like flower petals, revealing the structure underneath. Emergency life support activated automatically, keeping everyone alive as their station was systematically taken apart around them. Kethavol found himself floating in a protective bubble along with his crew, watching their fortress being rebuilt into something else. Hours passed. When it was over, Kethavol and his people found themselves on a small ship that had appeared from nowhere. Through the viewports, they could see what remained of their system. Every piece of metal, every component, every bolt and wire had been rearranged into a perfect sphere, orbiting the system's star. The sphere was massive, easily the size of a small moon, and its surface was mirror-smooth except for one feature. Carved into the sphere's surface in letters 10 kilometers high were symbols that spelled out a simple word in every major galactic language: 1. The mysterious ship that held the survivors activated its engines and jumped to warp without asking permission. It delivered Kethavol and his crew to the nearest hegemony base, then disappeared before anyone could react. Within hours, the report reached the Hegemony Council. High Arbiter Thane read it with growing disbelief. The entire Kepler 442 defense network was rearranged into a sphere with the number 1 written on it? He asked. That's correct, High Arbiter. No casualties, no damage to personnel. Just complete rearrangement of all artificial structures. Thane consulted his advisors. What species could do this? Our best matter manipulation technology couldn't accomplish something like this. The military analysis came back inconclusive. No known species possessed technology capable of manipulating matter on this scale. The energy requirements alone should have been impossible to hide. Send investigation. Fleets to surrounding systems, Thane ordered. This threat must be identified and eliminated. But before the investigation fleets could launch, another report arrived. The fortress at Kepler 186 had suffered the same fate. Every artificial structure in the system had been rearranged into a perfect sphere, this one bearing the number 2. Then came reports from Kepler 296-3, Kepler 438-4, Ross 128-5. War Prime Zexthul received the reports while fighting the Andovar rebels. At first he dismissed them as impossible rumors, but as more systems fell to the mysterious attacks, he began to feel a familiar chill. Show me the tactical analysis, he demanded. His intelligence officer displayed the data on the main screen. Each attack follows the same pattern, War Prime. Complete disassembly of all artificial structures, rearrangement into spheres bearing sequential numbers. No casualties, no conventional weapons detected. Zexthul studied the patterns. The attacks were moving in a clear line through hegemony space, targeting border fortresses and defensive positions. Whoever was doing this had detailed knowledge of hegemony military installations. What's the next target? He asked. Based on the pattern, likely the fortress at Wolf 359 or Proxima Centauri. As if summoned by his words, a priority message arrived from High Arbiter Thane. The Wolf 359 fortress had just become 6. Zexthul felt a memory stirring. Something about the pattern of these attacks felt familiar. The precision, the complete knowledge of hegemony positions, the deliberate numbering. Sir, his aide interrupted his thoughts. There's been another development. Our deep space monitors have detected the source of the attacks. The display changed to show long-range sensor data. A single ship, barely larger than a fighter craft moving between systems at impossible speeds. But the energy signatures it gave off were unlike anything in the hegemony databases. Where is that ship from? Zexthul asked quietly. His intelligence officer checked the records. According to our analysis of its trajectory, it originated from the Sol system. The Sol system, where the humans lived. The primitive single-planet species that Zexthul had dismissed as harmless. That's impossible, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. The humans are primitives. One ship, basic weapons, no threat. But even as he spoke, another report came in. The fortress at Proxima Centauri was now 7. Across the galaxy, panic was beginning to spread through the hegemony military. Their most advanced fortresses were being disassembled by an enemy they couldn't see, couldn't track, and couldn't fight. High Arbiter Thane called an emergency session of the full council. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered in the Great Chamber, all talking at once about the mysterious attacks. Order, Thane commanded. We face an unknown enemy with capabilities beyond our understanding. What do we know? The military briefing was short and terrifying. 17 border fortresses had been systematically dismantled, each one transformed into a numbered sphere. No weapon signatures detected, no way to track or intercept the attacking force. Who could do this? Demanded High Arbiter Vex. The answer came from an unexpected source. Lieutenant Vash, the monitoring service officer who had been tracking strange readings from human space, had finally been given permission to speak to the council. High Arbiters, he said nervously, I believe the attacks are coming from the human system. The council erupted in laughter. The idea that the primitive humans could pose a threat to the mighty hegemony was absurd. But Thane was not laughing. Explain. Vash activated his sensor data. For months, we've been detecting massive energy signatures from the Sol system. Construction on an impossible scale. Whatever they're building there, it requires technology far beyond what we thought they possessed. The laughter died as the council absorbed this information. In the distance, another report arrived. The fortress at Kepler 452b was now 8. For the first time in the hegemony's history, the council faced an enemy they couldn't understand and couldn't defeat. And that enemy was just getting started. The counting stopped at 17. War Prime Zexthal stared at the latest report from his intelligence division. For 3 days, no new fortresses had been transformed into numbered spheres. The mysterious attacks had simply ended, leaving 17 hegemony systems marked with giant monuments to an unknown enemy's power. Why did they stop? He asked his tactical officer. Unknown, War Prime. The energy signatures from the Sol system are still active, but no new attacks have been detected. Zexthal felt a growing dread in his stomach. The humans had demonstrated impossible technology, struck at will across hegemony space, then simply stopped. It felt like the calm before a storm. His communication system activated with an urgent message from Hegemony Command. All units, priority, alert. Unknown transmission being broadcast on all frequencies across the galaxy. Origin point, Sol system. The main screen flickered to life, showing not the familiar symbols of hegemony communication, but something else entirely. Human writing, accompanied by a voice speaking in perfect galactic standard. We are humanity. The words were spoken calmly, without anger or threat. But something about the tone made Zexthal's blood run cold. You destroyed our peaceful envoys without provocation or negotiation. We have responded with restraint, harming none of your people while demonstrating capabilities you cannot comprehend or counter. The display changed to show footage from inside one of the transformed fortresses. Hegemony personnel floating safely, in protective bubbles, unharmed despite the complete destruction of their station around them. This restraint was a choice, one we will not make again if forced to defend ourselves or others from your aggression. Zexthal realized with growing horror that he recognized the voice. It was similar to the one that had tried to communicate from the human ship he had destroyed. Captain Sarah Chen, reaching out in peace before he murdered her and her crew. We offer one opportunity for peaceful coexistence. Send diplomatic representatives to the Sol system. Come in peace, or do not come at all. The transmission showed images of the 17 numbered spheres, each one a monument to hegemony military power, rendered helpless by human technology. You have witnessed our mercy. Do not mistake it for weakness. The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, every hegemony communication system fell silent as military leaders tried to process what they had just heard. At Hegemony Command, High Arbiter Thane called an emergency war council. The greatest military minds in the galaxy gathered around a holographic display showing the Sol system. Analysis, Thane demanded. General Krex, the hegemony's chief strategist, activated tactical displays. The humans have demonstrated matter manipulation on a scale we thought impossible. But 17 attacks, then stopping to talk? It suggests they have limited resources. Or they're showing restraint, as they claimed, countered Admiral Voth. Think about it. They could have destroyed those fortresses and killed everyone inside. Instead, they carefully preserved every life while proving their point. War Prime Zexthal spoke up from his position at the table. I destroyed their ship. They're not going to negotiate in good faith. Thane studied the tactical data. What do we know about their actual capabilities? The science division had been working frantically to analyze the attacks. Dr. Yellen, the hegemony's leading expert on exotic physics, presented her findings. High Arbiters, what the humans did should be impossible. They manipulated matter at the quantum level, rearranging atomic bonds across entire star systems simultaneously. The energy requirements alone. She paused, checking her calculations again. The energy requirements suggest they have learned to tap directly into stellar output. They're using their sun as a weapon. The room fell silent. Using a star as a weapon was purely theoretical, far beyond even hegemony science. Could they destroy stars? Asked High Arbiter Vex. Dr. Yellen's voice was barely a whisper. If they can manipulate matter at the quantum level on this scale, yes, they could potentially trigger stellar collapse or force a star to go supernova. The implications were staggering. A species that could destroy stars could hold the entire galaxy hostage. General Krex slammed his fist on the table. We can't let primitives threaten the hegemony. Gather the Grand Fleet, we'll destroy their system before they can use this weapon again. But Admiral Voth shook her head. With respect, General, we don't know how many of these weapons they have. What if every human colony has stellar manipulation capability? What if attacking them triggers a wave of star killings across our territory? High Arbiter Thane considered the options. How many ships in the Grand Fleet? 12,000 vessels, High Arbiter, the largest military force ever assembled. Thane made his decision. Prepare the Grand Fleet, but do not attack. We go to the Sol system to negotiate from a position of strength. If they want to talk, we'll talk. But they need to see that we can fight back if necessary. 3 days later, the largest military fleet in galactic history jumped into the Sol system. 12,000 ships, representing the combined might of hundreds of conquered worlds, arrived ready for the final battle with humanity. What they found waiting for them defied all logic and understanding. The Sol system had been completely transformed. Where once there had been empty space between planets, now there were structures that dwarfed entire moons. A massive ring of construction surrounded the sun itself, a Dyson swarm that captured and channeled stellar energy on an impossible scale. Admiral Marcus Torres stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching the alien fleet arrive. His tactical displays showed the enemy numbers: 12,000 ships, enough firepower to sterilize hundreds of worlds. Impressive, he said calmly, but not unexpected. Around him, the bridge crew monitored their own forces. 3,000 human ships, hidden among the massive construction projects until this moment. But these weren't the primitive vessels the aliens expected. Each human ship was larger than the biggest alien dreadnought. Their hulls were black as space itself, covered in armor that could withstand the direct output of stars. Their weapons were powered by the sun itself, channeled through the Dyson swarm that surrounded it. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "the alien fleet is requesting to speak with our leadership." Torres smiled grimly. "Put them through." High Arbiter Thane appeared on the main screen, his crystalline form sparkling with nervous energy. Behind him, the other High Arbiters looked stunned by what they were seeing. "I am High Arbiter Thane of the Galactic Hegemony," he began. "We have come to discuss terms." Torres looked at the alien leader with cold eyes. "I am Admiral Marcus Torres, of the Terran Defense Force. You murdered our peaceful envoys. You dismissed us as primitives, now you want to talk? The destruction of your ship was a misunderstanding," Thane said carefully. "War Prime Zexthul acted without full information about your capabilities." Torres activated a holographic display, showing the attack on the Endeavor. "Captain Sarah Chen tried to communicate peacefully. Your response was genocide. There was no misunderstanding." The display changed to show the 17 numbered spheres floating in hegemony space. "We could have responded the same way. We chose restraint. That choice cost us nothing, but it cost you 17 fortresses." High Arbiter Vex leaned forward aggressively. "You threatened the established order of the galaxy. The hegemony has ruled for 10,000 years. Torres's smile was colder than space. "Your rule is based on others being afraid of you, but you should have asked yourself, what happens when you meet someone who isn't afraid?" He gestured to the structures surrounding them. "Everything you see was built while you forgot we existed. Every ship, every weapon, every defensive platform. We spent decades preparing for this moment, hoping it would never come." Admiral Voth studied the human constructions with professional respect. "Your technology is indeed impressive, but you have 3,000 ships. We have 12,000. Torres activated another display. "You have 12,000 ships designed to fight conventionally. We have 3,000 ships designed to fight you." The display showed comparative analyses. Human ships with armor that could withstand stellar-level attacks. Weapons that could crack planets. Defensive systems that made hegemony shields look like paper. But more importantly, Torres continued, you fight like conquerors. You're used to enemies who surrender or die quickly. We fight like survivors. We're used to facing impossible odds and finding a way to win anyway. High Arbiter Thane tried to regain control of the conversation. What are your terms? Torres's expression became deadly serious. Complete withdrawal from human space, no interference with human colonies or ships, reparations for the crew of the Endeavor, and most importantly, the hegemony will no longer expand by conquering peaceful species. The alien leaders exchanged shocked looks. They had come expecting to dictate terms to primitives, not receive ultimatums from an equal power. And if we refuse? Asked High Arbiter Vex. Torres looked out, at the alien fleet, then back at the screen. Then you'll learn why a species that evolved on a death world treats war as just another survival skill. He activated one final display, showing energy readings from the Dyson swarm. The numbers were impossible. Enough power to destroy entire solar systems, all focused and ready to fire. Your choice, High Arbiter. Peace or war with an enemy that has been